Imagine a miracle drug. Seriously, picture a medication that takes a certain death sentence and basically turns it into a manageable condition. Well, for 2 years, a drug called Ritonavir was exactly that for the HIV community. By 1998, you had 75,000 patients taking up to 20 of these capsules every single day. I mean, their lives literally depended on it. And for 240 consecutive production lots, the manufacturing process was absolutely flawless. But then, entirely without warning, the drug just stopped working. The very chemistry of the medicine vanished into thin air, leaving thousands of people in sudden, terrifying jeopardy. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unravel one of the most chilling, mind-bending mysteries in modern chemistry.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the sheer speed of this disaster is staggering. In 1996, ritonavir hits the market. Massive success. By 1998, it's a total staple of global HIV treatment. But just weeks after an initial, kind of routine quality control failure, the whole thing collapsed. Analysts testing the capsules found they weren't dissolving at all. Instead of clear medicine, the capsules were turning into this cloudy, insoluble white paste filled with microscopic needles. So, naturally, they destroyed the batch, deep cleaned the factory from top to bottom, and tried again. But the white paste just kept appearing. Within a single week, every single tablet produced by the factory, and get this, even the research lab, was totally ruined. Global production came to a dead halt.
You can probably imagine the profound panic at Abbott Laboratories. It was absolute. You can literally feel the desperation in this quote from their team. They completely rebuilt their facilities. They even went as far as moving production to an entirely different factory in Italy, just hoping a clean environment would fix the whole shebang. And hey, for a brief moment, it actually did. The Italian pills passed. So the scientists flew out from Chicago to Italy to see what exactly was different. Everything matched perfectly. But days after the Chicago team flew home, the Italian factory's tablets suddenly failed too. The contamination had somehow followed them across the globe.
Let's move into Section 1, the explosive chemical feud 170 years before ritonavir.
So to actually understand the bizarre disappearing active ritonavir, we need to rewind to 19th century Paris. It's a bit of a historical mystery. Back in the 1820s, two rival chemists, Justus von Liebig and Friedrich Wöhler, were completely at each other's throats. Both guys had discovered a compound made of the exact same atomic ingredients: one silver, one carbon, one nitrogen, and one oxygen atom. Wöhler's compound, silver cyanide, was completely stable. Honestly, pretty boring. Liebig's compound, silver fulminate, on the other hand, was so violently explosive that even a moist pinch of it would detonate with a massive bang. For 2 whole years, they publicly insulted each other in scientific journals, completely convinced the other was a hopeless fool. But when they finally met up in Frankfurt to test their compounds side by side, they realized the impossible. They were both right.
For all the chemistry students tuning in right now, this is just a beautiful foundational lesson on isomers. It wasn't just about what atoms were dumped in the beaker. It was entirely about how those atoms were arranged. Today, we can actually prove this using infrared spectroscopy. When you hit a molecule with light, the electric field tugs on its electrons and nuclei. Think of atomic bonds kind of like boats on the ocean. Each type of bond responds to a specific wave frequency. Strong double bonds rock very differently than weak single bonds, giving us a highly unique visual fingerprint. Wöhler's stable compound, it had these rigid, tough double bonds. Liebig's explosive compound had a super weak single bond that was basically just waiting to snap.
Bringing it back to our Abbott scientists in 1998, they suspected something very similar was happening. They took that totally useless, cloudy white paste and threw it under the spectrometer, fully expecting to see a totally different chemical fingerprint. But the spectrum showed the exact same peaks. The paste had all the exact same bonds. It literally was ritonavir. But there were these microscopic, truly terrifying deviations. The arrangement of the atoms was identical, but the way those molecules stacked together into a solid form had fundamentally changed.
Which brings us to Section 2, the thermodynamics of chocolate and designing crystal forms.
Now, what's really interesting here is that we can actually explain this highly complex pharmaceutical nightmare using something you probably have in your pantry right now: chocolate. This brings us to the concept of polymorphs. Cocoa butter is made of long carbon chains shaped kind of like a Y, and these shapes can stack together in multiple different ways to form a solid block. Chocolate actually has 6 known polymorphs. If you've ever accidentally left a chocolate bar in a hot car, you know exactly what happens. It turns dull, bends easily, melts all over your hand. That's form 4. But the shiny, durable chocolate with that perfect, satisfying snap,
That's Form 5. Exact same ingredients, folks, just stacked differently. So how do we get that perfect Form V chocolate? It's all about engineering stability. You have to actively manipulate temperature and time. First, you heat the chocolate to 50 degrees Celsius. This wipes the crystal memory completely clean. Then, you drop the temperature rapidly to 27 degrees. This creates what's called a shotgun nucleation effect, spawning millions of tiny little crystals of all different forms at once. Finally, you carefully raise the heat back up to 32 degrees. This melts away the weak Form 3 and Form 4 crystals, leaving only that highly stable Form 5 locked perfectly into place. It's an incredibly precise thermodynamic dance.
Now, let's apply that exact same thermodynamic logic to our drug, Ritonavir, by looking at its energy landscape. Form I, the original, life-saving medicine, sat in a moderately shallow energy valley. It was stable enough to use, sure, but technically speaking, a lower energy state existed out there. And that white paste? That was Form 2. Form 2 fell into an extremely deep thermodynamic valley. Because it was so dense and tightly packed, it became incredibly stable. Like so stable that it completely refused to dissolve in the human body. And unlike chocolate, where you can just add a bit of heat to reset the crystals, the energetic hill to climb out of Form 2 was virtually insurmountable. No amount of chemical heating or cooling could ever bounce it back to Form I. But this raises a really suspenseful question. If the energetic barrier to create this invincible Form 2 was so incredibly high, how on earth did it suddenly spread across the entire globe in a matter of weeks?
Let's explore that in Section 3, Tin Pest and Crystal Contagion, the Unstoppable Spread.
To answer that question, we have to look back at the bitter winters of Northern Europe. Imagine it's the 13th century. Congregations were completely terrified by this mysterious phenomenon affecting their giant cathedral organs. The massive tin pipes would suddenly develop these cracked, gray, crumbling lesions. People actually thought it was the devil attacking the church, or that the metal had somehow caught a weird form of leprosy. When the church was quiet, you could supposedly even hear the pipes groaning. But in reality, this was a massive phase change. The intense cold was causing the stable, silvery tin to spontaneously rearrange its atomic structure into a crumbly gray polymorph. This became widely known as tin pest.
Here is the technical breakdown of why tin pest is so unbelievably destructive. Normally, it takes a massive amount of energy to force silver tin to transform into gray tin. But once just a single, tiny speck of gray tin forms, it acts as a nucleation site. It effectively lowers the activation energy hill for all the silver tin immediately touching it. The surrounding molecules see this new, stable template and just immediately snap into the new formation. It spreads like a literal infectious disease, expanding and literally tearing the metal apart from the inside out.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that Ritonavir suffered the exact same fate as those medieval cathedral organs. By sheer bad luck, or maybe just a microscopic fluctuation on the manufacturing line, a single random Form 2 seed crystal was born, and it acted as an incredibly powerful nucleation site, drastically lowering the energy barrier. All the surrounding Form 1 medicine instantly crystallized into Form 2. But honestly, here is the most horrifying part. These microscopic seed crystals became airborne. They actually attached themselves to the clothes of the Abbott scientists. When that team frantically flew over to Italy to investigate their pristine, clean factory, they unknowingly carried the contagion with them on their clothes, physically seeding and destroying the Italian production line too. Unbelievable, right?
Which leaves us at Section 4, living in a Form 2 world, the impossible reversal.
We are left looking at a pretty grim aftermath. When a more stable polymorph takes over, the logistical and economic costs of trying to eradicate it are just staggering. Millions upon millions of dollars. Just look at this incredibly bleak quote from the press conference Abbott was forced to hold after 5 months of exhaustive, completely failed research. They told the world, "There is nothing that we can do today to prevent a hurricane from striking any community or polymorphism from striking any drug." Wow. It's just a profound admission of helplessness. The collective IQ of the world's most brilliant chemists, backed by basically unlimited financial resources, simply could not overcome the fundamental thermodynamics of nature.
And this brilliantly illustrates the specialized chemical defense we have to use today. Pharmaceutical companies now spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, rigorously screening drugs for potential polymorphs before they ever even reach a factory floor. They are terrified of factory contamination. But then there's the unpredictable reality. We still don't even fully understand the limits of polymorphism. Take aspirin, for example. It's been industrially crystallized for over 130 years. You'd think we knew literally everything about it, right? Yet, quite recently, a scientist accidentally discovered a Form 2 of aspirin. Over half of all known compounds are polymorphic, and completely predicting when or where a new, more stable form will spontaneously generate, it remains a chilling scientific impossibility.
So, you might be wondering what actually happened to those 75,000 patients. Well, because scientists couldn't beat the crystal contagion, they basically had to surrender to it. Abbott completely abandoned the original easily swallowable capsule. They were forced to reformulate the entire drug as a pretty foul-tasting liquid that effectively dissolved the Form 2 crystals. It had worse side effects, and a lot of patients really struggled to tolerate it, but it was literally the only way to keep the medicine viable and save those lives. They only survived because they had a liquid safety net to fall back on.
But here's the thing. The next time this happens, we might not have a safety net. The truly terrifying reality we must accept is that the very structural integrity of the medicines we rely on is entirely at the mercy of microscopic thermodynamics. The life-saving pill you, or maybe your loved ones, take every single day could, theoretically, vanish tomorrow, locked forever in a crystal contagion we cannot break, all seeded by a single, invisible speck of dust. So, what do you think? Can we ever truly predict the next disappearing polymorph?